Welcome back, friends, to the shop. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to install a power inverter. I've got a 1000-watt Xantrex here, and all of the cables, we're going to make everything up from scratch. We're going to be putting this in the snowmobile, the box trailer. I found that not having 110 when we were off-grid was kind of an inconvenience, so we're going to remedy that today. So let's head over to the trailer, see if we can pick a suitable spot, and then we'll get ready or busy making up all the cords and see if we can get this installed today. I probably ought to take a moment and explain what a power inverter is. It might not be obvious to everyone. A power inverter is a way to convert your 12-volt power like you have in your car or RV into usable 110. This particular one is 1000 watts, so this will give you the ability to run lots of different things. You could run power tools, skill saws, you could do battery chargers, all manner of things. This is a pure sine, meaning it's safe for you to use sensitive electronics on. So if you wanted to run your laptops or computers or charge phones and things, it's okay for that. This is on the higher end, a little nicer one. It gives you a digital readout. You have the ability to put a remote sensor in there so you could see the status of it. The discharge charge, I think, is probably all on there. You've got a USB port as well as a GFI protected 110 outlet. On the back side, pretty well standard. We're going to go red to positive, black to negative with big number 4 cables, a cooling fan, and then we finish out with the chassis ground. Let's head up into the trailer here, see if we can find a suitable spot. One thing that I really wanted was keeping battery tenders on the snow bikes, and I didn't have the ability to do that with the cold weather. So what I'm thinking is we've got all of our utilities up front here in the nose. We've got 2 big deep cycle 6-volt batteries that we'll be able to connect to, and I haven't been in this yet, but here we have a chassis ground, so that's good. That'll take care of that. We've got a race that our wires are going in there. Those are running underground or outside. I think what we need to do is to mount that inverter right here. Square head, who in the world still uses square head bits? I don't even know if I have one in my main kit here. Pretty standard. This is the charge controller that charges the batteries from the 110 or 110 outlets, our fuses for our 12 volt right there. Now, I was trying to think where I wanted to put this thing, and that little piece we took off there, that was kind of handy. A guy could sit on it when you're putting your boots on, even stacking stuff there like your lunches. It was handy, so I don't want to give that up by putting it on top. And I don't have anything to screw to. There's a structure here, but there's nothing here, and that wouldn't be very strong. So I'm going to go grab it, but I'm thinking this here is nothing more than just a vent for that charge controller to get some air in there. I think if we could remove that, if that inverter would cover that hole, that might be a good spot to replace it. We could space it out with some spacers. It'd still get plenty of airflow in behind it, and that might be a suitable place. It'd be really handy to have it right there. All right, guys, here's what I think we should try to do. I think it would be best, and it's going to be out of the way, if we could get it mounted up here with all these utilities, right? The wiring's going to be shorter. It's going to be right by all of our plugs. Problem is we can't get screws in there because we're too high. I'm betting they cut that hole a little bit smaller than this grate. If we could move that grate down just an inch or so, that might give us enough room to mount it there and then put the grate back on. Let's see what they did here. What if we did that? Now, does that give us enough room to pick up a... Yeah, I think it does. I think we can make that work, guys. To mount the inverter to the aluminum, I'm going to use these 1-inch hex head self-tappers. These are the handiest things. They've got a drill bit built into them, and they'll drill through steel. They're really quite good. So far, so good, and that grate should fit on here just perfectly. We'll just re-drill those holes a little bit smaller. That takes care of that. Okay, so for your inverters up to 1000 watts or so, a number 4 wire is suitable. This is a number 4 right here, red and black. And we're going to crimp some ends on, these nice ends. Now when you're buying your ends, make sure you know what size the studs are that you're going to bolt to, because of course, you have two things you got to be concerned with. You know, this is going to fit a number 4 in there, and then you've got the right size hole. Because if you look, you know, you look at these, there's some big ones and little ones. You can get by in a pinch. You throw a washer on it, but it's best if you can get it to fit as tight as possible. So I got these here. Let's go try these guys on for size. Make sure that they line up on those 3/8 studs. See what's going to be most suitable. So this is that's a little big. That's probably half. Right there. This is a crimping tool that smashes these down. You know, if you get in a bind and don't have anything like that, you can do it with a punch. You can put it in the back of your vise or an anvil and to do that. It's not rocket science. I've even soldered them before. Okay, so what you want to do, and we'll be shrink taping these as well, is make sure you have a clean end on there. That looks clean enough, and push this to the end, and that'll you can kind of mark right there where to cut that insulation. Now, be careful when you're cutting your insulation. Just go around. Don't cut all the way through. You don't want to cut the strands of the copper wires. It's one of those things where you kind of wish you had 3 hands. And that gives you a good connection that won't come loose. Now when you buy your shrink tape, it's tempting to buy that cheap stuff on Amazon, but buy the higher quality stuff that's got the adhesive in it. I like to usually get red and black, but they didn't have that here, so this is all they had. The same thing here. We want that to cover here and go back about the same distance, so we can snip that about right there. Heat gun's my favorite way to do it. You can do it with a torch too. You can do it with a lighter if you have to, if that's all you have. There, doesn't that look nice? Man, that gives me the fizz right there. Nothing more satisfying than a good, clean electrical connection. I think the cleanest way to do this, since we have that nice access area, is if we just go straight in like this. We're gonna have to drill these holes. Now, we don't want to run our nice cable through a metal, sheet metal like that, or it'll rub the insulation off and that will be bad. It'll short out. So when you in a situation like this, you use a rubber grommet. One thing you can do, if you have a set of calipers, you can determine what that inside is, what you'd need that. You don't want it to be too small, or you have a hard time getting that wire through there. But that'll basically tell us what we need. So something around here. Let's see if we can't get those grommets in there now. Start it at the bottom, and then take your flat blade and you can just work it in there till it straddles the sheet metal. Now we're ready to make up our chassis ground. There's a nice big dedicated stud welded to the frame of the trailer down there that they're using for a ground for everything, so that'll be great. So we'll make that up really quick with this green wire. I didn't have a black one, but green's just as well. It's kind of means ground to me anyway. So there's a common ground that they welded a stud to the actual frame of the chassis, and that's the one we picked up for that chassis ground. So that's just perfect. So that is done. Now we've got to drill holes down through that plywood and then come up right here, and then we'll mount our remount our fuse, make up our cables, and make our connections, and we're set. Always keep some cardboard in the shop. My granddad always did, because it sure makes a good thing to lay down in. All right, I got some plastic shielding here. We'll wrap the wires in. We got to go back up into that battery box, and now we can put a chunk of shielding on there. All right, guys, we got our loom in. That looks really good. Okay, we'll start with the ground here. And you see right there, that's a big, it's a 5/8 ground there that the batteries are ground off that's welded into the frame. So that's a great ground. That's exactly what we want. So we'll make up our cable. Nice crimp. So bad news, guys. I don't have a 100 amp fuse. I've got one coming in from Napa. I'll have Jariah pick it up on his way in the morning, and we'll finish this up. But that's not going to stop us from finishing everything up and getting a test on it. So I'm going to go ahead and connect it without the fuse. I'm not worried about it. We'll get that installed tomorrow, and then we'll see how it works. So I will always connect the positive first, and then the ground, and I'll show you why here. So it appears we have two 6-volt batteries wired in series to make 24. That's always the best way to go for your RV. Here's our positive lead. You can see it's being utilized by all the systems here. But the reason why you connect the positive, and speaking of positive, so I just coiled up all this cable, and we'll hook it up now, and then tomorrow we'll cut it, and then we'll mount the circuit breaker, a fuse. I think I ordered a fuse. We'll mount that here, and then we can trim that down so we don't have all that excess. But the reason why we put this on first is when we're tightening it, I've done this before. My granddad had a scar on his arm. You know, he's a mechanic, from watch that he grounded against the battery post and the chassis of a car. He used to wear those all metal bands, those stretchy ones. I never could stand it. I wanted to be like him when I was little, so I tried to do everything he did. But it pulled my arm hair. I found it to be uncomfortable. I got rid of it. But that's what he liked, those stretchy metal ones. And he grounded the ground against the chassis or the core support, and that thing just turned red hot. And he was moving it up and down his arm. He said he thought it was a bee stinging him. But his watch was red hot. But now, see, the ground's not hooked up, so we don't have a connection. So if we're tightening this and we accidentally touch the wrench to the chassis, it's not going to spark on us and arc. And that's not a very fun thing to happen. I've had that happen many times. Now, with that connected, now you can hook up the ground, and the ground won't do that. Well, friends, why is it when you kneel down on a shop floor, you always kneel down on something that about punctures your kneecap? I guess that's about it for today. Apart from the fuse, obviously we'll get that in tomorrow, or I guess it'll be Monday. Tomorrow's Friday. We'll get in tomorrow. That turned out really nice. Now we'll have the ability. I run these little lithium tenders to keep the batteries up on the bikes, because you want to start the day with a fully charged battery. Now when we're off grid, we'll be able to plug in there and charge those up off those two big 6-volt batteries. Charge computers and stuff too. So that's a good upgrade to do to a trailer or even your truck. If your truck didn't come with, it's the handiest thing to have. These little inverters. 1,000 watts, a good place to start. It runs about most things. You could run blenders and all sorts of things. So yeah, I guess that's about it. It turned out really nice. It looks like it belongs there, and just a nice clean install and done properly. Feels really good to do something right. It always takes a lot more time, but it's always worth it. You'll never regret it. You forget about that time you You forget about that time you invest in doing something right. But when you do it halfway, it seems like it always comes back to bite you at the worst possible moment. It's just the way life goes sometimes. So that's it. Thanks for watching. May God bless you and your families. Please keep us in your prayers, and we'll see you guys on the next video.